Yes, sir.
All right, it's Pastor Kevin Kev here with another edition of Preaching to the Choir. We did the Patriots, we did the Steelers, did the Cowboys, but now I want to have some fun during this quarantine time, and I want to do my favorite team, Minnesota Vikings. And I got two guests with me. They cover the Vikings, so I thought this was the best time to do it with all this quarantine going on. So let me introduce. I'm going to get the name right. Katia Dragotis. Yes, got it right. Got it right. Got it right. And then we have Eric Thompson as well, man. How's it going? Doing good, doing good. Before we start off, I want to get y'all takes on this whole quarantine situation and what y'all been going through since it all started. Definitely. Yeah, I told you, I've been working. My business is still essential, so I've been having to go every single day. On my weekends, I do be bored. I get to do absolutely nothing. And I love it. So let's go right into it. I kind of want to get y'all opinions on the season, about where everything went, what we could have done better, and kind of like your stance going into this off season. Right. Yeah, see, and then my thing is, let me see. I think we had some technical. See, I'm sorry about this. Making sure we all good in the audio. All right, so my kind of thing was on. Could y'all talk real quick? I'll just make sure we all good.
Yep, we're up. I
All
can
right,
hear you. Yep.
all right, cool. Um, my thing about the season was with Kirk Cousins coming into the second season. First year, you kind of got to get your feet wet with all that. But I think the main thing that I really wanted this season was the QB stability. I feel like for all these other franchises that be recycling quarterbacks, they're one of the worst teams in the league. The Cleveland Browns come to mind. The Jets always having to get somebody new, and we're the only team that kind of get the duct tape the position and yet still win 8 games. We can never, I guess, quote unquote, tank right and get a top 5 pick in the draft or whatever. But yeah, y'all mentioned about the Mike Zimmer stuff and how big was that Saints win to keep his job and stuff like that. And it's always little things in the season that you like. Okay, if it goes our way, we could be one of the dangerous teams in the league. We can be one of the worst teams in the league. Dating back to last year, the rookie kicker Carlson missing the field goal against the Packers. At the end, it cost us a playoff berth because we couldn't, we can't beat the Bears for whatever reason. Then you got the Green Bay tie, and then this year, marched all the way down the field against Green Bay in week 2, all the way down the field, and then decide, let's pass the ball this time, and Kirk Cousins with interception. So it's always like one thing, one game, one instance that's like, okay, now we could have been in the driver's seat instead of going on the road to New Orleans and then 49ers. We could have had a home playoff game because y'all know that in Minnesota it's hard to beat us. So I feel like we have to have some kind of some home cooking display, because if we're not home, it's kind of scary to trust a Kirk Cousins on the road 2-3 games in a row. Now I was very, very excited beating the Saints, and I was like, okay, we can beat the 49ers if this and this and this. And at halftime we was right there in the game, and then the second half I don't know what happened.
Well, I can tell you what didn't happen in that 49ers game was pass blocking, especially up the middle. That was kind of the Vikings' Achilles heel throughout the season, and it really just came to fruition. I mean, that was the nightmare scenario basically for the Vikings offense, was if the opponent can get consistent pressure up the middle, even around the edge. The Saints had Cam Jordan, who had a couple big plays against the Vikings, but they didn't pressure. I think the weak point was that pass blocking with Bradbury and Elflein in the middle. And the 49ers exploited that over and over and over again. And like we've already touched on a little bit, I think Kirk Cousins, when things go according to plan, is a top 5 quarterback. He's very accurate. He delivers the ball on time when plays develop how they're supposed to. But it's when he's forced to improvise, but Patrick Mahomes does so well in what led Kansas City to a Super Bowl. That's really where, when the play breaks down, that's where Cousins just throughout his career has struggled. And I don't know if it's a gene, whether you have it or not, but what I do know is the Vikings need things to go according to plan more often, next season. I think that's really where it starts with the offense.
I think, on my opinion on Kirk Cousins, am I ever going to get to the point that I can have full faith in Kirk Cousins? I honestly don't think I can. He's not. I agree with you, Eric, in terms of him, when things go right, being a top 5 quarterback. Because I was thinking about it today, I'm like, who else would I want in this position that would be available? We have Kirk. Let's just deal with it. But what my attention needs to always be towards is building the best weapons around him. Because you're right, when he does have the best things around him, there are great accuracy, there are great things that occur in that. So the front office is obviously seeing things in him that we as a fan base or media are not seeing as well. So let's make as solid as possible around him so that he can perform to his best ability, because those little margins of error that he has, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm on that special, because like if you know what you have in the quarterback, like everybody can't be blessed to have Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, you can't be blessed to have Pat Mahomes. So if you know you have a good quarterback, and he might not be the greatest, I mean, you have to build around it, and you have to give him the right tools to succeed. And Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen, and even inserting Kyle Rudolph back into the offense, because he was, they didn't use him that much early, but getting him back into it, you saw good things can happen. And it's kind of crazy to say this, but do y'all think that Kirk Cousins, so he got a 3-year extension in the offseason. Do y'all think it's going to be a good thing with him for this 5 years? This year and then this year and 3 more, or yeah, is that right?
Technically, yes. I think there are 3 more seasons now. I'd be very surprised if that last $45 million season actually went through as planned. But
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, it's at least the next 2 seasons. It's more than likely he's going to be the quarterback.
Right, and so I'm like I said before, I'm kind of glad that we finally have that because the Christian Ponders of the world, R.I.P. the Tavares Jacksons, and the everybody else who was a stopgap. It's kind of like, okay, now that we have that, how can we be the other teams that's consistently winning 10 games? I know we don't have a Russell Wilson or Pat Mahomes, but can we have that next tier down where we still continually making the playoffs? And I don't know if it's. I think it's gonna be a kind of a murky situation because if Rick Spielman or Mike Zimmer gets let go, like who's going to take over? Who's going to be the person that keep us right up there? Because I love Mike Zimmer. I think he's one of the top 10 coaches in the game, and he's defensive minded. We always been a good defense since he came in. So he's doing his job as far as that. But when it comes to trying to win the Super Bowl, are we on that level? That's what we got to get to.
I agree with you in terms of the Mike Zimmer. I'm a Mike Zimmer girl. I like the stubborn kind of blue collar ethic. I guess you could call it Bud Grant-esque, if you will. That I think that he's trying to really associate with the franchise. And as the NFL changes, it's definitely more player driven and that different relationship between player and coaches. So does that work with us? We'll see, but I really like what they're trying to do in Minnesota and bring the type of guys in that can really be part of that atmosphere and see what clicks. So I'm curious, if we start building all these building blocks around them, what other coach could come in to do better than Mike Zimmer? That's kind of my question.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's with Cousins, with Zimmer, with a lot of the pieces the Vikings have. It's like, okay, so what's the replacement to do better? Again, you're going to have to draft one of these Mahomes, the Russell Wilsons guys, and you have to usually be in the top 5 or 10 of the draft to hit on one of these guys. So the Vikings have kind of been caught in the middle there. I think Cousins, you can debate the salary and everything else, but there's no worse place to be, I think, in the NFL than without a quarterback. Look no further than the Bears. They had every piece in place except the quarterback, and everything just kind of fell apart. They had one nice run in 2017 or 2018, and that was it. They're going to have to find a new quarterback in order to contend. They still have a lot of nice pieces on that team. And you look up and down the NFL, you already touched on the Browns, the Jets, these teams that are constantly looking for a quarterback are constantly drafting in the top 10 because they can't figure out a way to win. The Vikings are unique in that way. I think they cobbled together that Case Keenum season in 2017. It's still, when you look what Keenum has done or what he hasn't done since that season, it becomes more and more amazing every year that we get farther away from it. So again, it's one of those, and there's a lot of Vikings fans that make what I think is kind of a valid argument. It's like, well, do you want to just be pretty good? You don't want to be just stuck in the mediocre middle. Shouldn't you just tank for this player? I see the argument, but then again, there's no guarantee that if you tank, you're going to find this next quarterback. If as sure of a thing as these quarterbacks in the next couple seasons look like coming out, there's no guarantee that they're going to succeed at the NFL level. So overall, I appreciate the Vikings plan, what they're trying to build here with Spielman and Zimmer. And I love Zimmer. I still do. I think he's still a very good coach. And again, you couldn't, if you casted someone out of central casting for like a football movie, you'd cast someone like Mike Zimmer. So I've always appreciated him. And he's not flawless, and very few people in the NFL are. He's definitely a little more leans to the defensive side. But overall, I'm excited to see what the Vikings can do if they can fill a few holes and make what might be one last run with this core group in 2020.
I think the interesting point that you brought up with the Case Keenum season, the unique part about that season too was that the guys around him really were behind Case. And that's something that we're not seeing 100% with Kirk, which definitely leads into the whole Diggs trade this season as well. So I think really infiltrating a community and a strong team environment for the guys around Kirk is only going to bring up not only his confidence, but just making him have that accuracy actually occur.
What is it going to take for Mike Zimmer and Spielman to, I guess, survive this season? Is it I mean, because making the playoffs for whatever reason, he makes the playoffs in the odd season. So technically, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. But so, what is it going to take for him to keep his job? Because, like we said, he finally got him a quarterback that's stable. Because Teddy Bridgewater was supposed to be our guy, and then all of a sudden, I get the news in my. I think I was in my room or something. He tore his ACL. I was like, "Come on, how? We had practice, So we had the guy in place, but now he kind of had to mix things up with Sam Bradford and the Keenum. But now he finally got his guy. Okay, maybe not his guy, but he got a guy. And how can Kirk Cousins help Zimmer and Spielman keep their job? Because if they don't win, if they don't make the playoffs, obviously they're probably out of there. But it's like you said, who can you replace them with?
Yeah, I think the worst thing that could probably happen, I think, to the Vikings in 2020 is be like an 8-8 or something like that, or maybe even sneak into that new 7th seed this season or something like that, and then just get blown out by the 2nd seed in the first round. If it's more of the kind of the status quo, or maybe a step back, that just kind of being stuck in the middle, I think that's going to be really tough for Vikings fans to handle. I think if it's weird to say, but if it's going to blow up this season, if people aren't going to be back, I think most Vikings fans would probably prefer it to blow up spectacularly. So they really just get, do a full rebuild rather than going back and forth with this. Okay, are they rebuilding? What are they doing with their future? I think Vikings fans just kind of want to see some sort of grand plan that they can kind of, okay, this is what the Vikings, they have a pretty good base of what we've seen, and they're a competitive team, and it maybe like you touched on earlier, that if there's a couple bounces that go their way during the regular season, they're hosting a playoff game and things are completely different in the US Bank Stadium. So I do like the approach of like, hey, just keep on trying to get into that postseason. You never know what happens, because even though these top seeds are consistently getting the Super Bowl, now with only the one bye, maybe we see that mixed up a little bit in coming seasons. So yeah, it's just tough to see. I think a playoff berth is going to be needed for sure for Zimmer and Spielman to keep their jobs. If it's anything below that, I think there's just going to be a lot of people calling for their heads.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with you on that. Kind of going back to the Diggs trade, I think Vikings fans are going to be unbelievably upset, and this week is going to be very telling of it if we don't utilize what we got for Diggs extremely well, and if those results don't pay off in this season, that's going to be very, very telling. I agree with you. I think we still strive for that playoff berth. I think there's too many good guys that we have on this squad that we've fought for too long to keep on this squad, that if we don't make a playoff, it would almost be like disrespectful to those guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. So you talk about the Diggs trade. I wasn't really at first, throughout the season. I think I was at the Giants game after the whole Mr. Practice and stuff like that. Did y'all think it would actually happen? Or because we saw the tea leaves, saw the rumors, everything that he said. Did y'all finally think it would actually happen though?
Yeah.
I was on the fence because I was like, he's saying all this stuff, but he's not really saying it. Most guys, we've seen the Antonio Brown situation, we've seen Yannick Ngakoue right now, he's going crazy. So we've seen other guys say like, "Get me out of here," and he wasn't inclined to say that. He didn't really say it, and I was like, okay, is he just playing with us? He sent a little tweets and everybody go crazy. And I was like, okay, well maybe it's something behind there. It's something like he said, it's truth to all rumors. I really didn't want it to happen because I just had bought me a Diggs jersey.
No, I think for me personally, it was kind of the boy who tweeted wolf for me. Like, okay, he's done this before. He's aired his grievances very vaguely on Twitter. I thought I was like, okay, more of the same. He's venting about something. He'll get over it. They'll be back. Cousins and Cousins will hook up for a couple more touchdowns. He'll have a couple blowups on the sideline. And it's something that's like, okay, that's just part of Diggs' personality. He's not the first wide receiver to ever have a personality like this. If he'd produced on the field, that was fine by me. I thought if he'd have these little kind of online blowups, it really didn't move the needle for me either way. I personally still wanted Diggs on the team in 2020. I think he's a very hard player to replace, and the Vikings are going to have a lot of chances to do that, but they're going to have to hit on at least one of the two of these draft picks in order to replace some of his production. So I was a little surprised just because we had been through the routine so often, but maybe it was this, okay, this is it. I don't know if it was maybe Cousins getting that extension that day. I mean, it moved very fast. Maybe he was like, all right, this is the last straw. Get me out of here. If Cousins is going to be my guy, I don't know if I can work with him. He was gone. That's just a theory. I'm not throwing it out there like news or anything. It could be something completely different. It could be, he had a bad sandwich that day in Minnesota, needed to get to Buffalo. Who knows with Diggs? But I think it's whatever happened. I mean, and Cousins had touched on this in his press conference last week. It was basically Diggs had made it known that he no longer wanted to be there. And so the Vikings, to their credit, got quite a good haul for the trading, especially when you compare it to what Houston got for Hopkins. So, but again, it's you can say you have all these draft picks, but that means absolutely nothing until they turn into players that can produce on the field. Because sure, you can get this wide receiver class is stacked in this draft. It's a great draft to be drafting wide receiver, but there's for every Michael Thomas, there's a Laquan Treadwell. We found that out in 2016. So yeah. They have to produce on the field, and they're going to have to produce early because Adam Thielen right now basically has BC Johnson and then a couple tight ends and the running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. So they need someone to step up early.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the whole Diggs thing also kind of goes into that same kind of culture that they're potentially trying to make of just, this is our rules. This is how we play football. If you're going to be emotional, then you're gone. I like Stephon Diggs as well. I would have preferred for him to stay and for things to have worked out and have him had a better relationship with Kirk, especially because he has such a great relationship with Adam Thielen, and that duo is such a power threat. But you make lemonade with lemons. Have fun with Josh Allen, I guess.
Be careful what you wish for, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think you're right. We definitely have to make sure that we're making a complete solid choice on the wide receiver, especially if you're going to take a wide receiver at that 22 or 25th position, just because that's a huge risk. And we've already seen what can happen to the Vikings if we do that. But as well, we also have great threats in the tight end position in Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr. returning. I think he's only going to develop even more into his role, and he really has that more receiver type body that I think he can really step up in this next season as another threat.
Right. See, I even got me like a little Mount Rushmore of Vikings receivers: Chris Carter, Randy Moss, and they go Diggs right there, and now he's gone. So,
all the Diggs, I'll never be like, well, it'll be a souvenir, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I got Adam Thielen. Let me just show Adam Thielen over there in the corner over there. There you go.
Oh, there we go. I like it.
Yeah, so it was so. I mean, I gotta get rid of it anyway. But yeah, I think like you said, he gonna get what he wished for. He wanted to be the guy. Apparently, that's what. I've seen rumors about that he wanted to be the man of the team, and I never believed if we're going to be the running team that we want to be, there's no point of paying the two elite receivers, especially when we're capped strapped now as it is. So I get that idea. Age wise, I would rather we keep Diggs and not Thielen for the age's sake. But like you said, the culture, Adam Thielen fits Minnesota. He is Minnesota, so it's kind of like you gotta pick and choose, when to do stuff. On the offensive side, so you said things go right, Kirk Cousins could be a top 5 quarterback. Do you think when things go bad, is he at the bottom? Like like a Jameis Winston is a top 5 quarterback in the league, and then the worst quarterback we ever seen. So what's the Kirk Cousins range, and where do we need him to at least, if he's going to average out, what position does he need to be at?
It's a good question. It depends. Again, I don't think he's the kind of quarterback that's going to consistently win you games by himself. We've seen that. But again, that's a really big thing to ask. I think there's only 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league that can really do that at right now. So asking him to consistently do that, it's maybe be a bit unfair, even if he's getting paid like that. Again, his salary looks gigantic until the next quarterback signs it's just always a game leapfrog. In a couple of years, it won't look incredibly bad. Again, that $45 million is probably still going to be up there if they actually try to pay him that. But for right now, it's reasonable enough where they can still build around him. But again, I think he has a pretty high floor. I don't think he's going to be, a terrible quarterback unless things just completely break down and he doesn't have any time to throw. And that's hard for most quarterbacks. I think what the Vikings need from him is to be consistently in that maybe, top to 10 10 to 12 range, above average, good to sometimes varying in that great, where he's going to have to make a couple of these deep on Cousins just for how poorly the line blocked and how everything just kind of broke down with the offense. But you'd like to see him step up at least in a couple of those situations where the game is on the line. He's not throwing that interception at the end. He's making the right decision on that rollout on in Green Bay, things like that. Where are those games on the line? So they are hosting that home game later on in January and maybe even into February. Wow, let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's crazy talk for the Vikings, but yeah.
Like, can we win a Monday Night Football game? Let's start.
Yeah, let's start there. Sure, yeah.
Baby
That's
steps.
what I would like to start, or even a Sunday night. We'll take that too. But I agree with you. It's definitely about, I think Kirk constantly has to be able to see the vision of the field a little bit better, and always goes into that confidence that he has in his line. And then also, I don't know why you don't have confidence in your receivers and the routes that they're running, but it seems to be an issue, or it's just the vision that he's not seeing. So I think I agree with you. It's the best that we could get right now. And I'll be curious to see when we start making that decision of finding a young quarterback and bringing him into the system to, I guess, learn under Kirk or just start making moves towards the future.
I would say one last offensive question before we go to defense. And also, if I see one more CJ Ham pass in the flat, I don't know what I'll do.
How do you feel about 12 mil?
What you say?
I said, how do you feel about that 3 or 12 mil?
I guess. I don't know. It's just
another Minnesota guy. You gotta love CJ.
Yeah, I love CJ.
But I don't like him as being that big of part of the passing offense. Yes.
Yeah. So we have this on the podcast. We have this theme or sports rule that we've been saying for a while, and teams don't listen. So it's don't pay running backs. So what are y'all view on? So I can understand the Panthers, and I can even understand the Cardinals when they paid David Johnson when they did, because at the time there's nobody else on the roster. The team is sorry, you could say, but then these other guys, Rams, even the Cowboys with Zeke, who playing wise, he wasn't a top 5 running back in the game. Tennessee franchised Derrick Henry, Le'Veon Bell took his contract, and now he's nothing in New York. So with that being said, and with us being the situation we're in, do you see a reason to pay Dalvin Cook? We know he's special, but it's like, okay, we saw what Madison does, and we even saw what Jerry McKinnon and Matt Asiata did when Peterson was out for suspension. So we see what our RBBC can do. Where are your viewpoints on Cook? Because he's going to look for that McCaffrey money because, one, I think he's that special, but I don't think we can do it.
I personally don't think that we should go that way, especially considering, we see what what Alexander Mattison can do, as well as just the guys that can step up to the plate. I don't think that risking on Dalvin Cook, who is definitely been injury prone and he's recovered and he's definitely strong, but as he continues to age, putting that much money towards him when we've already had cap issues, I don't think that's the best use of our money.
Yeah, it's, as much as I love Dalvin Cook to play, I really, really enjoy watching Dalvin Cook. And I think last year was I think he can expand and have an even better season, especially in this offense. He's going to get the ball a lot in this offense, the way that it's designed. And the run game is going to be a big part of the Vikings going forward. It's just there's too much evidence to the contrary of paying running backs. Even with McCaffrey's is as heavily involved as he is in the passing offense, he's getting 100 targets this season. It's still financially, it's just kind of irresponsible to do anything even close to like $10 million a year or over for a running back, just because you can get 80 to 90% of that value for dirt cheap, because there are 4 or 5 guys that you could draft every season, or probably more than that every year, that could replace most of that. And the Vikings have already shown that they kind of have that in Alexander Mattison, who had a really good year when he was called upon. I thought they could have put him in the mix actually a little more just to keep Cook fresh. And again, as much as I love Cook and as well as he did, he missed over half of his first 2 seasons in the NFL. And when you're investing that much in a position that just doesn't have that much value in today's NFL, right, and if he gets hurt again, that's just so much dead money, literally, that I can't justify the Vikings breaking the bank at all for Cook. Do I hope that they can work out some sort of extension that's kind of team friendly and, doesn't go up to that, even close to that McCaffrey level? Sure. But I think Cook is going to ask for quite a bit of money. He probably should. I bet a team probably would. I just hope it isn't the Vikings, unfortunately. I'd love to see him in purple for the rest of his career, but just the way that the NFL works these days with that position, I just can't justify them doing it.
Right. And then we already did it before with Adrian Peterson. Like, do we want to do it again?
That was a completely different time in the NFL too. I mean, AP was he was the MVP in 2012. I'd be shocked if there was a running back that was the MVP, and even with someone like McCaffrey. And you talked about Gurley and the Rams. Gurley got that huge extension. He didn't even get to the extension years before the team let him go. That's what a disaster that contract was. The Vikings just couldn't. I mean, money is not plentiful under the cap for them. I just don't see how they could do it.
Definitely. All right, well, let's move on to the defense. I know a lot of people are saying, okay, we lost Rose, Waynes, and Alexander. So I guess I want to say this. All right, so because they played a big part of our team last year, how much of a need is corner? Like, are we really going to miss Rose and Waynes as much as people think? Like, let's say all the mock drafts have us getting a cornerback in the first round. With Mike Hughes, adding Holden Hill, is it that much of a need? Just because, okay, we saw what Rose happened in Rose, we saw Waynes be consistently average, which sometimes that's not bad on your team. And Alexander, who I thought we could have got back if he took $4 million to the Bengals, I thought we could have signed him back. But how much of a need is that? And also sticking in the secondary. How surprised were you guys with the Ant Harris getting franchised? Because of my knowledge, I don't never remember Minnesota ever franchising anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Vikings didn't cut Xavier Rhodes, Vikings fans would have probably lost their mind after last season. I like Xavier a lot, but I think that what people failed to recognize or see is that he was definitely still struggling with the lasting effects of that injury he had from the season before. You could see it in his speed. You could see it in just coverage of the wide receiver in general. I think that never fully recovered, and just sadly age creeping up. I mean, he's 29, almost 30 now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not something that can be recovered from. Like you said, Trey Wayne's kind of whatever. And I felt the same about Mackenzie Alexander. Yes, he was more stable on my front, but I think having a healthy Mike Hughes back and the confidence that they have in him, and then also Holton Hill. Didn't see much from him last season. Obviously, he was out for half the season with off the field issues. But I think if he can return and kind of get his mind frame right on that, that's going to be great. But what also is going to be super, super important on this, if we do bring in a rookie cornerback, one or two there, is that we have that veteran support and stability of Anthony Harris and Harrison Smith at the safety position and kind of guiding that secondary as well. It definitely speaks volumes that like you said, I think this is only like the third or fourth time the franchise has used a franchise tag on a player. So definitely speaks to what Anthony Harris has provided. He obviously had a huge monster season last year, but he also, again, fits into that culture with that humble work ethic, something that he's really constantly striving for and buying into that Mike Zimmer program.
Yeah, for me, cornerback is a need just because it's a numbers game. I mean, you need at least, 4 or 5 dependable corners in today's NFL because you have it usually at least 3 on the field for most snaps. Again, yeah, Rhodes, the ship had sailed. Roads were no longer closed there. Unfortunately, I mean, wow. It's just it's crazy. I mean, for being all pro in 2017 to what he was last year, obviously injured. Yeah, right, exactly. That shows you how much the Pro Bowl means for the most part. But it was pretty. I mean, that one was the writing was on the wall for quite a while. The Trey Waynes would have been nice to have him back for $14 million. Absolutely not. Good job, Cincinnati. Congratulations. Go get your money, Trey, but not here. That's fine. Yeah, but the Mackenzie Alexander ones, that was a little surprising because I thought he was a pretty valuable slot corner, and the fact that the Vikings haven't picked up someone in his place yet, maybe in free agency, because there were a few, it seemed like pretty affordable options if they weren't going with Alexander as well that have already been picked up now. So I'd be very surprised if they didn't address that in the first day or two. Maybe not with 22 and 25. I think that's a very strong possibility that the Vikings leave day one with a corner. But, if not that, I would be very surprised if they went through Friday of the draft without getting a corner there. Just because, again, you're going to need a few people. Again, Holton Hill, good player, hasn't proved to be dependable so far in his career. Hughes, again, he seems like he's going to be, the CB1 going into next season. And then I have high hopes for him. But you need more than just those two on the outside, and depending on who you want to have on the inside as well. So, and with Anthony Harris, I'm really hoping the Vikings, I think from what we're hearing, the Vikings are still trying to work out a long-term deal with him. The franchise tag was a surprise, but I think that was kind of a holding place. Like, okay, if we can't re-sign Harris to a long-term deal, at least the Vikings can go get something for him in a trade. And that's still a possibility. Who knows what's going to happen on the draft. If the Vikings draft a safety early, I think the writing's kind of on the wall there in that respect. But yeah, again, this is a good draft, especially towards the top at corners. There's not quite the depth of really talented people as a wide receiver position, but there are still a lot of really good players. And if you look at any of the mock drafts, you see a lot of cornerback going to the Vikings around one, and that wouldn't be much of a surprise.
I got a theory on Holton Hill. So he was undrafted, and have y'all ever seen any undrafted, whatever position is, be able to keep his spot after doing his own field issues again? So I'm hoping he'd be a superstar, because I don't understand, if he's undrafted and he's, still he was undrafted because of the issues and got in trouble again, that most teams would just cut their losses and keep it going because you're not losing anything. But for him to stick around on the roster, kind of maybe Holton Hill may have something that we're not really seeing. And Mike Zimmer has been known as a DB guru, so it's like, okay, maybe he thinks this guy can be special, and that's, if we don't go a corner in the first round, then that's probably why. And that's my theory on it. I don't know how true it is. We'll find out Thursday, but I just think maybe Holton Hill may be something special. I don't know.
Definitely.
No. Yeah, I think Katya, you've been at training camp a lot, and even before Holton Hill had to serve that suspension, he was in training camp practices, and he was definitely holding his own. Thielen and Diggs were absolutely roasting most of the players on the roster throughout training camp, and Hill is actually making some plays too. So I think the Vikings see the potential, and I've seen it too when at training camp. He's a very talented player, and like you said, Kev, there's no way an undrafted, if this guy's just a scrub roster filler, he's gone already. There's no way that the Vikings put up with that 8-game suspension if they don't think they have something in him. But I don't think he's really out of the what I like to call the Josh Robinson Memorial Mike Zimmer doghouse yet. He really had to earn his snaps last season. He's still not out of there. He's really going to have to keep his nose clean. Maybe this, especially with this offseason, if it gets extended for any of the coronavirus stuff, they're going to have to keep an eye on him, because if he gets in trouble at all, I think he's basically at 2.5 strikes with this team. And obviously he's in the future plans for him. So hopefully he can, because on the field, when he has been called upon, he's proven to be a solid player, and I think he has a lot of potential.
Yeah. And last thing, so Everson Griffin, we'll let him go. I don't think there's any money left to bring him back, but he hasn't signed nowhere. Do you think there's a potential reunion, or you think we just going to address that need into the secondary? In the draft, we already have Hunter, we already have Adenabo, who I think everybody keeps saying we need an edge guy, but I think we have one, and it's kind of like the revolving door if you think about it, because you had Jared Allen, Brian Robinson, Everson Griffin. Now you let go Allen left, and then you brought in Hunter, and then you kind of like a little circle going on. So now we got the next guy that is going to take the Everson Griffin out of USC role and come in as a positional pass rusher. So do you think there's a chance that we bring him back? If not, do you think we should address that need early? Because I know I've seen a lot of Gross Matos or Epineza to us in the first round, and I've seen that that's a dire need that the NFL.com and all that stuff is saying that Minnesota needs. So what are your thoughts on Everson Griffin in that position?
I like Everson. I was kind of shocked because he's really bought into Minnesota and really making it his home. And he is that guy that you see at practices and at training camp who's really very vocal when it comes to especially the young guys, really kind of keeping everyone accountable, making sure that he's being both constructive and vocal on that point. And then you see that on how that translates on the field as well. So seeing him get out of that last 3 years was a little bit surprising to me, and I think he got a little bit cocky. I think he just was talking to Tom Pelissero. I don't know if you guys saw that, and he had more of a humble approach of I didn't realize that no one was going to become calling for me like this is. So my gut still tells me that he's not back in purple. I don't think that he's going to be back. I think addressing the needs at the draft, since we do have the history of really developing talent in those later rounds, I don't think we should address that in the first day. I think that's more of a third, fourth round decision for us as well.
Yeah, I agree there. And with Griffin, it's unfortunate just because he was, he stuck by the Vikings and the Vikings really stuck by him. And it was really tough, to see him depart what happened to be over money. But it sounded like they were quite a ways away. I was a little surprised at Griffin not getting picked up by another team kind of quickly, unless he was asking for way too much regardless. But I think really kind of what hurts Griffin is teams they can't really see him in person. And that 2018 episode still happened. I mean, right. I think that he seems like he's a better person. He came out the other end a lot better for it, but it's still part of his history. And I'm guessing it's probably hard for teams that don't know him personally, that, can't see him in the room. It might be harder for them to commit, what's going to have to be a pretty decent amount of money, I think, in the free agency market. And again, he's in his early 30s. I believe he's 32. So he's, he's been in the league for about a decade now. And it's one of those where if he comes back on a cheap deal, absolutely have him back. I think Odenigbo is more than ready to take over that starter position if Griffin doesn't come back. But, I mean, the more the merrier, especially in that Zimmer defense. Having 3 or 4 dependable pass rushers is never a bad thing. But, yeah, as far as a draft need, I don't think that's a super urgent one where they have to address it on day 1 or maybe even day 2. The Vikings have shown a propensity to develop these pass rushers. And the people like Odenigbo that went later on in the draft, and he's really stepped up the last couple of seasons. I've been a huge fan of Odenigbo since they drafted him, and it's really fun to see him take advantage of the opportunities he did have last season. So, yeah, it's not the biggest draft need. I wouldn't be surprised if they use one of, again, they have 12 draft picks as of right now, and knowing Spielman, they'll probably have 17 or 18 by the time everything is done. So I wouldn't be surprised if they took 1 or 2 pass rushers, but I'd be a little surprised if they took one day 1.
I'm actually kind of interested to see if Everson's almost waiting to see how the rest of this week pans out and the direction that the front office is taking. And if that's a conversation that he brings up of, okay, well, now I'm excited about the moves and the changes that you've made, and I want to be part of this team, and I would potentially be willing to get back on for a smaller amount of money if it's something that he believes in. So it'll be very telling.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think we should just trade back all our first round picks, because obviously we hit on late rounds. Neil Hunter, Griffin, Diggs. We didn't draft Thielen. The whole team is late picks. I don't really think we should go first round. I got the little Bleacher Report update today that we're going to trade back. We're looking to trade back, and I was like, we should. First round has not been kind to us. Trey Waynes, the Ponders. You can name Treywell and Troy Williamson back in the day. South Carolina right here in my head. I was excited for that, but he was terrible. So. Yeah, so I don't know what we're gonna do. Do y'all think the cornerback receiver is kind of is that the direction that we're going, or do y'all believe in the trade rumor hype?
Well, for me personally, I think it's you get in trouble if you think, okay, this is the positions we need. It really kind of depends on how everything plays out. I think the Vikings have a lot of different plans in place, and that seems to be for the press conferences that we've done with Spielman after, right, immediately after picks. He's always, the pick is made, and then there are about 5-10 minutes like, okay, Spielman's supposed to be coming out and giving his press conference right now, and we're still waiting. It's like he's making more calls about the next pick or the next trade or everything like that. So it really, I mean, it's a very fluid situation. It's going to be really interesting to see when everyone's doing it remotely this year, how much that gets affected and how much trades might happen or not happen. I think it's going to be really good entertainment, and a lot of people are going to be watching as well. But I think you do get in trouble. Okay, to say we need to come out of day one with the corner and a wide receiver. I think that's where teams get in trouble. And I think it was Suhan or someone at the Star Tribune that had an article about that. When the Vikings needed a quarterback in the Christian Ponder year, they started to get, there was an early run of quarterbacks, and they're, oh crap, we better go with Ponder here at 12. That's where you get in trouble. You want to have, okay, if it's a really close comparison between a wide receiver and whatever other position that may be as big of a need, maybe use that as a tiebreaker if you're both kind of on the same level on your board. But go get the best players. You can always, there's no such thing as too many really good wide receivers or too many good offensive linemen or too many good guards. What if the Vikings haven't had enough good guards or good defensive or good offensive tackles in a long time? So I hope they're not dictated mostly by position. I hope it is about the players. That I know that there's probably, even if they get crazy and trade up, it's usually hard to win those trade up kind of things. But what if there's someone in the top 7, 8, 9 players that they really like and they trade both 22 and 25 for that? That could be a possibility as well. Maybe they have that scenario if player X falls this far, we'll try to make a trade. But that's why I just hope that the Vikings have more plans in place rather than saying, okay, these are the players we need to, these are the positions we need to come.
I definitely agree with you on that sense. I'm going to give you kind of a back end question too. Is there a position though that you would be disappointed that they drafted at 22 or 25?
Running back. I'd be very, very disappointed on a lot of levels. And I wouldn't say quarterback too, because then that might show their hand a little bit as well. So quarterback, if it's like I'm not a huge like the Jordan Love or whatever those guys, the quasi project guys. But yeah, running back, I'd be upset. That'd be weird.
Definitely.
Yeah. Is there any player in the draft that you would love to see be a Minnesota Viking? Whether we trade up for him, trade back for him. Is there anybody come to mind?
For me, it's on, like you said, just whoever's the best available is at the time of the draft. Hopefully it's someone that fully fits into our system. I think that's going to be the most important thing as well. No player in particular in my mind.
Yeah, and I'm not the huge, 14 mock drafts person. I have a few guys that I really like. I like their fit. I think the Gladney out of TCU. A lot of people think maybe the end of the first round might be a stretch. Maybe if they could try to get him, early day 2 or something like that. But I'm thinking he just seems like he's a Zimmer corner. Like he's a bigger guy, really physical press cover, corner. I think he'd be a really good fit. I think Mims, the wide receiver out of Baylor, I really like just for his fit for replacing what we lost with Diggs. I think he could be that instant deep threat to really stretch out the defense, give Thielen and Rudolph and Irv Smith room to operate underneath. But I'm not going to pound the, I do like Jones, the tackle out of, I've seen a lot of mock drafts where if he's there in the 20s, I'm okay with that. Other than that, though, I'm not going to give you like 5th round sleeper guys that I hope I don't have these crazy draft crushes. I always like the stories like the Anton Woodfield Juniors. I like all the Gopher guys that they could do it. That there's like 3 or 4 Vikings legacy connections. You can get Trayvon Diggs or something like that. That's always makes for a good story. And I do like Diggs as a player as well. But yeah, I'm not going to pound the table for too many draft crushes. There's a handful of guys that I hope they are interested in as I am. There's a hope, but there's a handful of guys I hope they avoid because I don't think they'd be a great fit. But I'm not the draft guru, and I would trust that the Vikings have a little better evaluation than me watching clips on YouTube.
Absolutely. I definitely feel the same. The whole Diggs thing is interesting to me. I honestly, just on a chemistry line and how close all the Diggs brothers are, I don't think we would be drafting him. That's just my kind of take. But yeah. I love the Antoine Winfield Jr. storyline too. I love that. I would love to see big Gopher girl, so I would love to see him in purple and gold.
I'm about to say Antoine Winfield Jr. is probably the one I do want. But see, once we franchise tagged him, I threw all my papers like, man, come on, like he's the perfect replacement for that. So I was like, well, never mind then, I guess. So as we wrap it up, thoughts on so if we do have the season, if the season start off on time, where do you see as of right now before the draft starts? Where do you see the Vikings? I guess in the end of the season type of thing, because I think we play the AFC South and then the NFC South. Oh, NFC South, yeah. So play both of them. Your thoughts on playing the Brady, Breeze, and then we get to see Deshaun Watson. Like we got a lot of good quarterbacks on our schedule this year. So what are your thoughts on where we'd be at? Do you think it's another, because it's an even year, we're going to be 8-8 again, or do you think we break the mold and go back to back double-digit wins?
Go
ahead, Katya. No, you go ahead. I'm interested because I'm still gathering my thoughts because this is a tough one.
I know. I think I'm struggling because I think there's so many remaining questions that have to be addressed before that first game, before training camp, before a lot of things. I'm gonna go, and this actually usually is not my take. I'm gonna go the optimistic route that we're really gonna find the pieces to work around the guys that we have, and I'm gonna go with a more like 10 win season. That's what I'm going to go with.
Well, for me, as of right now, I mean, with the holes they have in the roster, it's really hard to be, okay, is this team going to be better than 2019? Right now, I'd have to say they'd probably take a step back. But again, this is April. This is not September. If the season goes off on time, I'll have a lot better idea of what I think about this team at the end of August than I will at the end of April. Even, right. It's with, even if they get A+ for most of the draft experts, you never know how it's going to work out until they get into, it's like, okay, they drafted all these fits at these, these positions they needed. They're just going to get a good grade. Or what if they do best player available and they still have, question marks at certain positions? So we're going to need to see it on the field. I think there's a lot of question marks. There's more question marks probably going into 2020 than there were in 2019, because 2019 kind of seemed to be okay. We stumbled in 2018, but we're going to run it back with this core group. They re-signed a bunch of their star players to pretty big deals, filled out the roster, and they made a pretty good run. Again, I think if you would have told people that the Vikings made the divisional round before the 2019 started, they probably would have thought, oh, well, that's better than I would have thought. So this season, it'll be there. I mean, there are so many variables at this point, and again, they have 12 draft picks. Personally, I think they're going to be 3, 4, 5 that need to be at least contributors this season. Pretty significant contributors to have them be at that 2. I'd have a hard time saying a 10-win season right now, but I could definitely see it again because I think they have some really good pieces in place still. I still think Mike Zimmer is a very good head coach, and I think I'm excited to see what Kubiak does. This is his first year being completely in charge of the offense. See if I'm a little worried about them going a little too run heavy and depending on just nothing but Dalvin Cook and 2 tight ends all the time, because that's really zagging when everyone else is zigging in the NFL. But maybe it'll work. So yeah, it's an incomplete grade for me, but I see the potential, but for a good season. But I can definitely see the potential for it to go real sideways real fast.
Yeah, for me right now, it's like you said, it's kind of hard to do it. But once the schedule comes out, I think they said May is when they're going to release it. Because, you can really get messed up, like, at Green Bay, at Houston, right? Whatever it is, you can be going all over the world. And I think that really matters about, can you get this win, or do you have a scheduled loss? But I'm going to be with you, right? I'm going to be optimistic as well. And I'm hoping that having a QB like stability is the driving force. I'm hoping that's the reason. Like we finally get a quarterback that can 3 years in a row start 3 years in a row. Maybe that's the key to success. I don't know. We never had it in a while, so that's what I'm hoping for. It's my thing, and I think maybe we can break the mold. Like you say, it's always one thing, a missed field goal here or an interception here that just changes the whole season. So maybe it goes our way just once, in the season. So I'm gonna let y'all say where everybody can reach you at. If you want to get more Vikings news, so y'all can go first. I mean, just get y'all a little spiel out before we get out.
Yeah, on Twitter, it's Katya_Dimitra or Vikings